everyone, welcome to UAP First Contact with me, Lad from the Woods. Okay, well, the subject for this video is going to be Occam's razor, or Occam's, actually don't even know, I've always said Occam's. Anyway, Occam's razor when it regards UFOs. And I'm going to read you Occam's razor first, and then I'm going to talk about people making things overcomplicated. Okay? So let's read the Occam's razor first. Occam's razor, also known as the law of parsimony, is a philosophical tool for shaving off unlikely explanations. Essentially, when faced with competing explanations for the same phenomenon, the simplest is likely the correct one. Now you ask, how does this apply to UFO and everything? Well, I've been listening to people like David Grush, who I believe, of course, Ross Coulthart and Bryce Zabel, and numerous other folks from the science community like Avi Loeb, and so on. And they all want to seem to come up with explanations for UFOs that are, okay, how do I explain this to you? That is way more complicated than necessary, okay? Oh, they might be from another dimension. Oh, they might be from the future. They might be from the past. They might already live here. That's all fine, and it may very well be. But if you take Occam's razor, okay, we already, it would be more likely that from another planet around another star, that there's a habitable planet and a race has been there for a very long time and maybe ahead of us, and they have developed a warp drive or an anti-gravity drive, whatever have you. We already know that's possible. We can't do it because we don't have the right exotic materials, but we know the math is there. Okay, the math is not there for traveling to other dimensions or coming from the future or the past. Yes, it's possible that people from the future might travel to the past, but what is more likely? Okay, a race that's ahead of us from another planet, okay? Proper aliens, extraterrestrials, not humans from another dimension, okay? Like I said, I understand that these things are possible, but what's the simplest, easiest? And that's a race developing a ship on their planet that can travel interstellar, okay? And so I don't, it's fine to have these explanations, but remember, a lot of us are talking to laymen, okay? And I don't want to mix their heads up, with all this extra stuff when you're trying to get to the point with a person, is to say, listen, we think there's other explanations, but the simplest would be is that they're traveling here in some type of starship using some kind of star drive. Okay, we know that the galaxy is full of planets. We know that the universe is full of planets. A lot of them are going to be habitable. Okay, it's just a matter of any day, any time that the James Webb will turn up, gases in an atmosphere that will say, well, we think there's plants there because there's a mountain of oxygen, or we're going to find technological things, gases and stuff like that. Now that brings us to another thing that Occam's razor, okay, is that every time somebody talks about these races having like a warp drive or whatever, oh, they must be millions of years ahead of us. More than possible. But why is that always the answer? Why can't they be ahead of us just by, I don't know, 500 years? I mean, we may discover warp drive in our lifetimes. So who's to say there isn't a race that have done it early, just after their atomic age, assuming they've had one? So I don't like to overcomplicate these things because people, it's hard for a lot of people to zoom in on. The real geeks, people like me and stuff like that, we're going to look at all kinds of different options. But if I'm talking to the average person, who are the people we need to talk to so that they can scream at their senators and Congress people and so on, and just keep it straightforward for them and then let them investigate on their own. But if you're going to explain something, at least give the idea, well, this is the simplest explanation, this is the most complicated, so this is probably more the likely, okay? And so, hell, what if we discovered warp drive tomorrow? Maybe we already have. Well, we've got half the planet that lives third world or more, okay? Why can't other planets be like that? You know, there's one nation that's more advanced than the others, and you know, but they'll bring others that are less advanced with them. I mean, you know, just because a ship lands in your field doesn't necessarily mean these creatures and beings and all that are a billion years ahead. Okay, yeah, I'm sure some of them are, but I'm betting there's a lot more in them that isn't. And all you need to do is look at different stars to say within 100 light years of here and see their ages, and then you'll start to see what I'm talking about. Okay, you know, people say that there are races so advanced we wouldn't even know what they are. Well, then they don't really matter, do they, to us, because we won't recognize them on that level. We are at a certain level in our development, so more likely we're going to, you know, be more akin to races that are, you know, within our level of technology. And for everybody to think that every single race out there is super advanced because they have this or that, that's just totally wrong, man. I mean, there's enough science fiction TV shows that teach us that. Look at Star Trek. They can warp around the galaxy and everything, but war is still something that happens. I realize it's science fiction, but the point that they're making there is that no matter how advanced we got, at the end of the day, we're still humans, okay? We may get better as we go, we may get smarter, and I think we have already, but we have a long ways to go. But don't assume every race that's out there is like that. And you can't assume every race is, you know, benevolent or malevolent either. We don't know until we actually talk to them. So to assume anything, okay? Now, people that have been adopted, you know, say that some races seem to treat them quite badly. Well, then to them, we may be mere ants or monkeys, like we would treat ants or monkeys, okay? Then there's some races that probably teach us, like the North Sentinelese people, who don't have anything to do with the human race. But I mean, they're here, they're humans. But I mean, no contact with us, or very rarely there's contact. And so we have no connection with them. Well, could be the same thing. Races also, you know, could be traveling here by mothership, which would make more sense in a lot of ways. And then these smaller ones are just local ships, you know, going back and forth and doing, you know, drone type work, or, you know, investigating, or 1,000 other things. But like I said, I don't want to make it super complicated. You know, Occam's razor definitely applies here. And, you know, all you need to do is, they will never tell you, but go into DARPA and start asking people like Sonny White, you know, what he thinks, and he'll tell you, yeah, I'm sure there's races billions of years old and they're traveling through dimensions or whatever, but what's more likely? And he's going to tell you the same thing. You know, he's one of the guys that worked with Alcubierre on the warp drive math, and they advanced it along with Lentz. And these people are saying, yeah, it is possible if we had exotic matter. Well, suppose there's a race in another sun, that the sun comes with different metals and all that, which they all do, and they have the exotic matter they need. For example, Bob Lazar's element 115. Okay, suppose now that we captured some of those craft like they're claiming, and let's say we reverse engineered it, or we work with them to figure out how to use these craft and stuff like that. Well, here we are, the human race, which 3/4 of us are still living like, you know, third world, you know, nations. You know, think of the Maasai tribes and all these other people. Well, I mean, we would take our little ship to another planet, and they're all going to think we're a billion years ahead, and we're not. Okay, first world nations, whatever, 500 years ahead of, say, or 200 years ahead of, say, the Maasai tribe in Africa, or the North Sentinelese. You know, same thing. We're probably several thousand years ahead of them in technology. So, I mean, for us to assume all this stuff is just really, really, I don't think it's smart. I think we should bring it down to more of our level where, you know, what we can understand. And, you know, if the day comes that they decide to interact with us or whatever, well, then we can find out from them. But if you're going to explain stuff to people, I would start with the simplest one, but that's not what I hear from scientists. A lot of scientists like Avi Loeb like to make them sound smarter than they actually are, okay? Avi is well trained in a Harvard University, but he obviously is not in life, okay? And life affects what you know. And Avi has lived a protected life, and, you know, says things, well, like, they're, you know, we've discovered alien stuff underneath the ocean. No, you haven't discovered alien anything. What you found is an interstellar piece of rock, just like Oumuamua, if it was a rock. But the thing that's at the bottom of the ocean is not alien. I don't know why the Hill claimed that Abby is saying that that they found alien materials. They didn't. You can call it alien, but it's not alien in the way that an extraterrestrial made it and it fell in there. All it is a piece of rock that's interstellar. And that's what he was going to look for. And if he found it, good for him. But it doesn't advance our knowledge with UFOs. Now, you guys got to realize that Abby has got a book coming up for sale in October. So he's doing everything he can to get book sales, and his publisher is probably pushing him in 100 ways. So I don't really like Avi Loeb, because he is from the old scientific thinking that if it isn't the way we think it is, well, then you're all wrong. Just like that clown that wouldn't debate Kennedy. Same thing. Like, he looks down on people like me, and I'm like, excuse me? I could debate you on what you're talking about. I'm not university. I'm not a doctor, but I sure as fuck have spent many, many, many months and weeks and months studying that stuff. And I mean, the internet is beautiful for people like me that didn't go to school, but if I want to take an 11-hour course in physics, I can do that. And maybe I'll understand some of it, maybe I'll understand most of it, or half of it, or whatever. But the point is, I can give myself enough level that I can ask the right questions to a proper physicist. But people like Avi Loeb, this guy Peter Hotez, they look down on regular people like us folks, even though we haven't got the little degree. To me, the degrees mean nothing unless you had life as part of it. And a lot of these scientists never see life, okay? They either watch it on TV or on the internet, but that's not experiencing life. So again, they want to make themselves important, so they make things sound more complicated, okay? And then it actually needs to be. Anyway, we'll end this. I just want to remind everybody, and I'll say it again, Occam's razor, also known as the law of parsimony, is a philosophical tool for shaving off unlikely explanations. Essentially, when faced with competing explanations for the same phenomenon, the simplest is likely the correct one. So remember that when you guys are going up on fantasy trips and telling people, oh yeah, there's 11 dimensions and this and that, and they're all traveling through that. Or they might be, or whatever. No, I think it's more likely they've developed some kind of anti-gravity drive or warp drive, like Kabir says that's possible, and they're traveling here. And they find us interesting. Saying, well, why would they find us interesting? Well, why do we find monkeys interesting to study? Why do we find alligators interesting to study? Why do we find each other interesting to study? Why do we find Neanderthals interesting to study? Okay? But it doesn't mean we think of Neanderthals less than human or not semi-intelligent. They obviously survived for a number of years before they died out, So just try and stick with that, folks. I'm not telling you what to think. What I'm saying is use common sense, okay? And try and break it down to the easiest. And once we get to that, then we can work up from there. But we're not going to be able to do that ourselves until we either travel in other dimensions, we're traveling back and forth in time, so on and so on. Okay, or they come here and they go, okay, yeah, this is what we've been doing, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, that's my email with the wolf. It lets me know there's an email coming in. So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming. If you'd like to support me and my channels, I have six of them. And there's a Patreon. It's patreon.com/ladfromthewoods. There I put up material I don't put anywhere else. I put up material earlier there, plus pictures. And then there's just straight donation things, paypal.com, and buy me a coffee. All the links are down in the description. Okay, everyone, we'll see each other soon. And hey, oh, by the way, one last thing, P.S., postscript. Thank you, one fella, I can't remember your name, but this one fella said, listen, he says, it's nice that you're putting up these little videos from other news things, but I would much rather hear what you have to say. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that tickled me. But then another one said that. I'm like, okay, I guess I get the hint. I better make sure I still do both. Not that I was going to give up doing this, okay? I mean, but it was nice to hear that from somebody. And, I'll do that next video. There's somebody that asked me a question, and I'm not really the guy to ask that question, but I do actually have sort of an answer. Okay? We'll talk to you later. Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye-bye.